welcome to the Collaboration Conversation, a listener-supported video podcast where Christian artists, entrepreneurs, and friends share about their upcoming projects and how they are using the gifts and talents that God has given them. This podcast is made possible through generous listeners and friends like you, and we are so very grateful. We also want to say a special thank you today to the Nashville Sounds for supporting Project Brickworks. To find out more, head over to milb.com/Nashville. If you would like to sponsor an episode, head on over to the collaborationconversation.org and click sponsor an episode. Likewise, if you want to check out or support our nonprofit ministry, head over to projectbrickworks.org. Today, our very special guest is Ash Bowers. Ash is the co-founder of Wide Open Music, an artist management company based in Nashville, Tennessee. Along with managing and writing with artists such as Jimmie and Matt Stell in the country music industry, he previously was a country music singer himself. He also has written songs for some of Nashville's biggest stars, such as Randy Houser, Dustin Lynch, Kanan Smith, Montgomery Gentry, Adam Craig, Bucky Covington, Keith Urban, Brad Paisley, and more. He has also launched a publishing company back in 2013, and we are just so excited to talk about all of these things. Ash, thank you so much for joining us today. We are happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This will be fun.
This is going to be fun. How are you today?
I'm good. Just been running with the kids this morning. We have one that gets up at daylight and one that sleeps until 10 o'clock. So
excellent. We love that.
Early morning
and 11 12
o'clock, yeah.
There you go. Our son, it's funny. He's always, it's just in him to get up at daylight. He has since he was old enough to get out of his own bed. He would just get up, and he's always the first up. He's always ready for school before, me and my wife are out of bed. He's just early morning and gets after it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's adorable.
Not a gift that I have.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
That's so funny. Well, very often we'll interview folks that either I know or Sarah knows. And in this case, you and your wife, Jennifer, and Billy and I are in the same Sunday school class at church. So that's how we know you. That we've just kind of getting to know you guys since y'all are pretty new to the class, been the last year or so. But we're just thrilled that you were able to carve out some time for us. But as we get started, just tell us a little bit about you and your family and where you're from.
Yeah. I'm from Jackson, Tennessee. My wife is from a small town about 20 miles south of Jackson, which is Henderson, Tennessee. And we actually, met there through a friend that I worked with. And that was back 2003 or 2002 when she and I met, and I got married in 2005. Been married for 16 years and have two awesome kids. My daughter will be 10 this week, and my son will be he's 11, so his birthday is in June, so he'll be 12 this next year. But been really, really blessed with an awesome family for sure.
That is awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
And you have a beautiful family. I've seen pictures. I haven't met you guys yet in person, but you have a beautiful family, and you are easily one of the busiest people that we've probably ever interviewed.
Yes.
But I would love to hear kind of about your start in country music,
Sure.
how that came to be, and talk to us a little bit about your start and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I was a huge country music fan growing up. My mom listened to country music. She was a big country music fan. And in 2003, I started a country band. I was actually a tractor mechanic in Jackson at a John Deere dealership. And we had, I started a band just after work practicing, and we got an opportunity really short in the game of, we started playing bars and certain venues, and we got offered an opportunity to go play for the military, a lot of troops. And so we were dealt a gig that was 42 days long. We got to go to Hawaii, Japan, Guam, the Marshall Islands, Korea, and back. And so it was a 42-day trip. So me and all my guys in the band, it was like we all had decent jobs. So we have to quit our jobs in order to go do this. And it was initially like, I'm not sure that I would have ever rolled the dice on just quitting my job and chasing the country music dream.
Yeah.
So we did. It paid. It didn't pay a lot, but it paid us to go over there, and it was all expenses. And it gave us we learned so much. We all learned so much about how to, travel, how to be on the road, how to deal with each other on the road. Our band got super tight, within that time. So it was a great opportunity. Probably, honestly, could it be possibly the best opportunity for an aspiring country music artist that's, young and, 21 years old and ready to get out here and see the world. I'd never been further than Panama City, I think, as far as traveling outside of Tennessee and much. So it was a really, really solid opportunity. And it that I probably would have never taken on my own if it hadn't been offered to me on a silver platter like that. So,
right.
So we did that, and it all went amazing. And not only was it a huge opportunity for me in the music business, but it also gave me an opportunity, just a front row seat to, what our military does for us and the sacrifices they make. And when we got back, it was either we could all go find jobs or we could start booking gigs and start really trying to do this for a living. So that's exactly what we did. We just started booking dates and ended up finding a booking agent in Texas in Texas is almost its own world in the music space. There's guys down there that are, touring all year long and selling tons of tickets and records that are, you probably don't know of if you live in Arkansas. It's just their own thing down there. And so we found a booking agent that was willing to book us, help us get some money going, making a living. And so we started touring with a lot of these Texas artists, and we did that successfully for until about 2007. As bands usually do, band broke up. One of the last gigs that I played in Texas was in Fort Worth at a place. It's called Firewater Bar and Grill, and a guy approached me after the gig, and he said, "Hey man, if I love your music. I love what you guys are doing. If you ever get up around Nashville, give me a call. I own a publishing company." And he gave me his card. And I ended up calling him. It was a guy named David Gamble. And I said, well, actually, I'm up around Nashville all the time. I live an hour and 20 minutes west of there in Jackson. And so I ended up coming up to Nashville and having lunch with the guy. And he started, plugging me into rooms, songwriter with the other songwriters that had hit, in the past or currently. And so I started building a network pretty quickly here. And I would go home on the weekends and play a bar gig here and there to make a little bit of money. And in 2008, I'd done record label showcases for like Warner Brothers, Universal, trying to secure a record deal for myself. And I was fortunate. Within about a year of me being in town in Nashville, writing and trying to get something going, I got a call from a guy named Benny Brown. He owned a record label at the time called Broken Bow Records, and they had recently just started having success with Jason Aldean and Craig Morgan. And he's like, "Man, I love what you're doing. I love your music. I heard some demos that you'd sang on," and we'd send him some stuff as we sent to every label in town. And he said, "Look, I live in California, and I have all these car dealerships that I also own aside from Broken Bow Records. And if you and your band could fly out here and play my Christmas party, it would kind of be like your label showcase." And so we did, and he offered me a record deal that night and a publishing deal. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was great. So I get back, and one thing about the music community here is I got a record deal way faster than I should have. It would have done me a lot of service to have, been in the business and understood just how important relationships are and building a team of people around you that genuinely want to be there instead of, picking and choosing people that have done great things in other people's careers. And it's I think there's a reason why the most successful country music artists are usually in town 8 to 10 years before they start having major success, because they've been able to kind of put that team together and they surround themselves with writers that have, the just a magical thing happens in the room. And as many writers as there are, when I got to town and started writing, I wrote with everybody that would write with me. And probably, I don't think I'd be exaggerating to say probably 150 songwriters, you end up with 2 or 3 that you love writing with, that you feel like you hit a home run with, that, really help you accomplish what you're trying to get out of the room. So, anyway, I got a record deal really quick. I knew nothing really about the business other than I, wanted to play country music, and I was willing to work as hard as I could for that opportunity. So we cut a record. I was a huge Kenny Chesney fan when I came to town. He was probably my biggest inspiration in country music without question. And a guy named Buddy Cannon produced all those records. And so after I got my record deal, Benny and I had a meeting, and he flew to town. He said, well, who do you want to produce your record? And I said, man, Buddy Cannon, and that was just shooting for the stars. And so he set up a meeting with Buddy and I, and Buddy actually is from Lexington, Tennessee, which is really close to where I'm from. So he and I really hit it off, and he's just like, man, I'm in. I'd love to cut a record on you. I love your music. And I love what you're doing. So we went in and cut a whole record. We put out 3 singles on Broken Bow Records over the next 3 years. They all, they would typically in our format, like what you're hearing on the radio is probably already top 20. A song can be released and being worked at radio for, sometimes 6 to 7 months before anybody really hears it, because there's so many overnight spins that have to get you the day parts. And so all 3 of my singles, for some reason, would get to 40 or 39 or 41, and it would fall apart and they would go away. So after my 3rd single, there'd been a lot of changes at the label as far as personnel and people that, were regionals that were promoting records and marketing people. And after the 3rd one, Jennifer and I had already, we had 2 kids by this point. I was, traveling a good bit. Within that time, I'd went out, I'd, opened for Jason Aldean. I was on his tour with he and Luke the first half of 2010. I was out with Eric Church that same year in the fall winter piece of his tour. And so I was ready. Look, radio wasn't working. It wasn't connecting for whatever reason. And so I just called the label and I said, hey, I think I'm ready to just throw in the towel. I'd like to be released from my record deal and my publishing deal. And I'm just going to go home and be a police officer. So they let me out of my record deal and my publishing deal. And I went back to Jackson. I applied for the Jackson Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. And within the time of me waiting to hear back and figure out what I was going to do with my life, I was still writing a little bit. And a friend of mine that I'd met just previously, a few years before that, I'd ran into, and he and I had some conversations. He had a publishing company in town. He'd had a lot of success in the oil business. He had come to town, started a publishing company that kind of, didn't work out as well as he had hoped. And so he was about to move back. And in a conversation, I was telling him, I'm going back home to be a police officer. And he's like, well, I'm headed back to Louisiana to get, to dive back into the oil business and do that. And through that conversation, we both, I always knew I wanted, regardless of what I was doing, I wanted music to be a part of my life because I love it. Yeah. And he was the same way. And he ended up calling me and just said, hey man, look, I want to keep my hands in the music business in some way, because I love music. And if you're interested in continuing to write songs and maybe we could start a publishing company, we could, he's like, I'd be open to that. So that was in early 2013. And I said, you know what, man, just let me, think about it and we'll figure it out. And we did. So we started a company. Long story short, we started Wide Open Music in 2013. I was the only writer there for probably the first year and a half. I was the only writer for the company. And I was just trying to get back in all those rooms again over the course of when I got my record deal, it gave me the opportunity to write with nearly anybody in town. I mean, because that's the fastest way for a songwriter to get a song on the radio is to write it with the artist. So when you get a record deal, you just get it's all right there. It's just kind of a buffet of who do I want to write songs with. So I always took a lot of it. I took full advantage of that because I knew if it didn't work out, I mean, the odds of, even once an artist gets a record deal, the odds of them having success are still very, very small. Yeah. So as something to fall back on, I always kept it in my mind. Well, look, I'm gonna build these relationships. I'm gonna go in here and write like my life depends on it. And if this don't work out, I'll still have a career, hopefully, as a songwriter and still be in this community and network of people. So I just spent the next year, since I wasn't on the road touring, I'm just going to go back and get in every room I can and just try to build that foundation again for myself as a songwriter. And I did. I started getting other artists, bigger artists, recording the songs that I was writing. And I signed an artist or a songwriter. The first person we signed was a guy named Trent Tomlinson, he had been an artist on Lyric Street several years back, kind of the same thing. He had 2 big hits and then ended up just wanting to focus his energy on writing songs and had never had a hit on another artist other than himself. And so we signed him to the publishing company, and he writes a song called Close Your Eyes. That was a #1 record on Parmalee for us. And then he wrote a Brett Young record called In Case You Didn't Know that was huge. It was like 5-time platinum song.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love that song.
For our company. And so at that point, it's, me and Steve are like, all right, man, now we're making money. Like, now this is really a business. Now this is working. And in 2016, it was probably April of 2016, I wrote with a guy named Chris Caminetti. We had hired a girl to just book write. She just handled the calendar, and she's out pitching songs. And a girl named Amy Hendon, and she called me and she said, hey, there's a guy named Chris Caminetti. He's a school teacher, but he's writing songs as, on the side. He's got some really cool stuff. Would you be willing to write with him? And I said, sure, let's just get an afternoon and see if it jives, if it works. If it does, we'll keep it rolling. And so I wrote with Chris one afternoon, and then that Thursday he called me and said, hey man, I had this writer's round booked at Puckett's in Franklin. And he said, it's me and another guy. And then he's like, and I had another guy, but he canceled. So is there any way you could fill in? I said, absolutely. Let's do it. It was, I think, $200 and supper is what it pays out of Puckett's. And at the time that was amazing because I just got in the Keith Urban cut, and we're, having some things happen with this publishing company. But for me as a songwriter, I was hanging on to one of these songs that had ended up on a record becoming a single. And so I take this gig, and then Chris called me that Friday, I believe, and said, hey man, do you know anybody else? Because the other guy canceled. And I was like, man, I don't. Let me make some calls. And then he shortly after texted me, hey man, I found this guy that I met at the gym named Jimmie Allen. He worked at the snack bar, and he's going to come, he's going to do it. And I was like, well, great. So I knew nothing about Jimmie, but I show up at Puckett's. Almost didn't go. My wife and my daughter both had stomach virus.
Oh no.
So they were both here sick, and I'm like, man, I need to take care of them, but we could also use the extra $200
and you already knew the guy had been canceled on twice.
Right, exactly. So me and my son, I think he would have been 5 years old at the time. He goes with me, and I'm just like, man, I'm telling him on the way there, man, I've got to work. I've got to play. So you're going to sit out here at a table and entertain yourself. And he brought this little VTech camera that he had. It could record a little bit of video. And so it would keep him occupied. And so we're there. I meet Jimmie, and Jimmie starts the round. It was me, Chris, and Jimmie. Jimmie started, then Chris, then myself. And by the middle of Jimmie's first song, I'm just like, man, this guy's got it. Like, he's amazing. And so we did the show. And as soon as it was over, I said, hey man, what's going on? What's the deal? What have you got happening? And he's like, man, really nothing. He's like, I've been here for 10 years and just, man, trying to, take every opportunity I can. And the whole time I'm thinking, man, that's crazy. Because I thought by this point I'd been in town for nearly 10 years. I thought I knew everybody, and I thought I had a good pulse on anybody in town that was, it all could carry a tune even, or had any potential.
Right.
And here's this guy telling me he's been here for 10 years. And so I said, well, look, man, send me some songs. I've got a publishing company. I believe in what you're doing. And to be completely fair, it's like I saw all the potential in Jimmie, but I'm seeing this from a publisher standpoint of, man, this guy's he's going to write a bunch of hit songs and become a star. And it didn't even really cross my mind at the time to manage him. It was just, man, I'm going to be his publisher, and it's going to be huge for our publishing company. And so a few days later, or actually the next day, he sent me it was a Sunday, he sent me a Dropbox full of about 15 songs. And
oh, wow.
There were some in there that were pretty good. There were some there that weren't. And there were, it was like, it was just so obvious to me that Jimmie, one, being an African-American, yeah, he was a little different, but he was so talented. I mean, Jimmie was beyond, it just blew me away that he had nothing going on. Yeah. And so anyways, I just, I called him that afternoon. I said, look, man, if you want a publishing deal, it's done, man. I don't, know what your circumstances are, but we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. And so we did that. I ultimately, became his manager, but he'd never been in the studio to have a full demo session. So I helped him piece that together. And man, Jimmie's so talented. He can play. He's an amazing drummer. He's an incredible piano player. I mean, he can play anything. So but we get in here with these session guys and just helping him get through those, that process, just kind of showing him how to do it. I ended up helping him. I produced and recorded the first 5 songs that ultimately became his first EP once we got his record deal. But we went in and we recorded this stuff, and then that next April or late April, it had been a year since I'd met Jimmie. We just spent all that time just kind of prepping and preparing and trying to figure it out. And Jimmie's he wasn't touring. He wasn't out playing a ton of shows. He had tried out for American Idol, and I don't even think he made top 40 on that. He got a little bit of TV time. He had somehow, before I met him, landed he was in a Pepsi commercial with Taylor Swift, and that had given him like a decent little paycheck to kind of live off of for a few months. So he was just kind of navigating his way through, but he wasn't out playing a bunch of dates, making a living as a touring musician or any of this. So it was, and typically if you're doing that, the way to get a label's attention is, hey man, you got to come see this guy play in Alabama. He's selling 300 tickets. And we just didn't have that tool with Jimmie. So, I just told Jimmie, hey man, we should just set up like an old school showcase. We're just you and your band will play over here. And it ended up being at a little venue. It was called the Country at the time. And now I believe it's called the Local there in Nashville, close to Music Row. And I just said, look, we'll just set up a gig. We got to get your band. You'll come do 5 songs, and I'm going to invite everybody in town. And so that's what we did. And we had a postcard that had Jimmie on it. It looked like a postcard. It's like a 5x7. And Jimmie was holding a guitar, and he was like jumping through the air. And it looked so awesome, but it also looked different. It was an attention getter. It wasn't a kid sitting on a tailgate or, propped up against a horse stall or something in a barn. So it got attention. And I remember telling Jimmie, I said, look, man, chances are nobody's going to come. We don't know, man, but we're going to send this out, and I'm going to email everybody in town, 3 of the songs, a link to 3 of the songs. And so we'll see. Yeah. And everybody in town came. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yay. There were people standing outside, like looking through the windows, watching when Jimmie was playing. Cool. And, he absolutely crushed it. It was, I was blown away. And so oddly enough, the label I was signed to, Broken Bow Records, they had just sold to a larger company, BMG. I think it was just 3 months probably prior to this. And so after the showcase, I'm telling Jimmie what an amazing job he did, how incredible. The whole town came out to watch it. And everybody told us not to do that. And nobody's going to come. And then sure we did. And it happened. And on the way home, the only label I didn't see there was Universal. And on the way home, I got a call from a guy named John Loba, who was running Broken Bow right after they got bought out. And he called and he said, "Hey man, I just left the Jimmie Allen showcase and they told me you were the guy to talk to." And he's like, "Man, I want to offer this guy a record deal." I was absolutely blown away. And I was like, "Great, man." I was like, "Well, look, let's chat tomorrow. Just call me and we'll see where we go from here." And then the next morning, before John even called me, I got a call from Universal Records and my guy there, and he said, "Hey man, I heard I missed something last night." I was like,
"Yeah, you did.
I heard you missed. That's awesome. I love that."
Yeah. And he said, well, can you have Jimmie over here by 3:00 today? And I said, "Sure, man." So Jimmie and I go over to Universal, and Jimmie played a few songs, and we played him the stuff we recorded. And meanwhile, Broken Bow and BMG they're blowing me up. And Jimmie was the first. I told Jimmie, we sat down. I said, "Look, man, here's where we're at. I'm a publisher. You might need a real manager. I don't know, but like I think that's probably the next step." And he's like, "No, man, you're my manager." He's like, "I've been down for 10 years before and I had nothing going on. And within a year's time, here I am." He's like, "Man, you're the guy."
You're the guy.
Well, I was like, "Okay, well, we'll figure that out and think about the best way to do that." And I said, "But meanwhile, let's figure out, are we going to Universal? Are we doing this BMG thing?" And as we sat there, we just decided, I mean, the passion meter from Broken Bow and BMG was just so overwhelming. I mean, they were calling me, "Let's meet, let's get it done." I mean, they were so anxious to be part of Jimmie's career. And the cool thing was, I told Jimmie, I said, "Man, it was full circle moment for me because that's the label that I was signed to."
Yes.
And they were at the show. To me, that's really cool too. Yeah.
100%. So we signed, so we do the deal, and man, we just got to work. We went in there and finished out the record. We released an EP first and then later a full record, but it was amazing. Just, I mean, Jimmie's such a hard worker. He's an unbelievable talent. And he's just one of these people. I've seen Jimmie. You always hear about the it factor, or you hear, man, can't put a finger on what it is, but Jimmie has such charisma and just such magic. I've seen him, I specifically when we were in New York, the week his album came out, and we had so much going on. I mean, we had the Today Show, we had all these meetings, we were out promoting the record, and Jimmie, he was completely gassed. I thought he had the flu. And I remember we were, just getting him in the elevator to go upstairs to a meeting at Pandora. And I'm thinking, man, he's so worn out. I don't see how he's going to be able to do this meeting properly. And as soon as he walked in, it was
he
magic.
just turned it on. Yeah.
And he just knows how. And it's not even like, I would probably say, yeah, he just, he flips a switch, but it's it's natural to him. It's not fake. It's a real thing. He really, knows how to connect with people, and he really cares about people and loves people. And I think that's one thing that gets him a long ways. And I've seen so many people here with so much talent without the work ethic. And I've seen people with the work ethic without the talent. And I've seen people with both, and it's still not work. But man, when it does work and you've got the charisma to do it, and the vision and the dream, and it's and it's just lined up for Jimmie. But when I signed Jimmie, officially signed Jimmie on June 1st of 2016. And then we signed his record deal on June 1st of 2017. And then in 2018 on June 1st, his single had just broken top 30 at country radio. And we celebrated his first number one that year in October. and then his second one a year later, and then
Wow.
It's lightning in a bottle. I tell you what, that's what it sounds like. That's awesome.
It is. It's absolutely lightning in a bottle, and again with him, he just works so hard. He's on a rocket ship. We just won earlier this year ACM new male artist, then CMA new artist of the year this year, and then we just got nominated for a Grammy. He's been on national television, primetime TV more than not any country artist, any musical artist, period. This year in 2021, I mean, he's had 44 national primetime television spots in 2021. I mean, it's just people love him because he's a real thing. He's not trying to be something else. He's authentic, and sometimes he dresses crazy, but it's what he wanted to wear. He's not most of these guys you see down there wearing ball caps and cowboy boots and a vest or so. They don't want to wear that. That's just what they are wearing, to try to be part of it. And Jimmie's just not that. And a similar story with Matt is, right after we got Jimmie going at radio, Matt, I was writing with a girl named Autumn McIntyre and a guy named Larry McCoy. And I had one of those postcards I was telling you about with Jimmie invites. I had just a handful of them were actually still sitting on a coffee table in my office. And I was writing with those two, and Autumn and Larry said, "Hey man, if you're looking for another artist, like we think we wrote with the guy last week, this super talented." And I said, "Well, I'm actually not, because this is, somehow songwriting has turned into a job for me. So like, this is a lot of work, this management thing." And I said, "But you know what, maybe if what's he wanting to do?" And she's like, "Well, he wants to be an artist, but he's a really great songwriter. So there's tons of potential there." I said, "Well, look, just set it up, send me his number and I'll call him." So I called him, and he came to my office the next week, and he walked in. He looked like he just rolled out of bed. I mean, he was not dialed in on the look like a star everywhere you go,
Gotcha. That memo. Yeah.
But he came in, he tall, lanky guy, tennis shoes, guitar in his hand. And I introduced myself. We spoke for a minute, and he told me he was from Morrilton, Arkansas. And I said, "Well, man, play me a couple of songs if you can." And he played me 3 songs, 2 he had written by himself. Which was impressive because not a lot of people write songs by themselves these days. And he played me those 2, and then he played me a song that he had actually written with Larry McCoy and Autumn the week before. And I was blown away by his songwriting. I said, "Man, this guy is a real deal. He really is a songwriter," and he was authentic. And he said, I said, "Well, look, man, what's the goal? What's the dream? Like, what is point B here for you? And if this is point A?" And he said, "Man, I want to make a living playing those songs that I wrote. Like that's what I want to do." And that's usually not the answer. It's like so many kids come to town and they just want to be famous. That's what they want to be. They just want to be famous. They want to be on TV. And Matt really, I think in some way they all have the desire, because that's success once you get to that point. But for him, he was just like, "Man, I want to keep the lights on playing these songs." So I said, "Well, dude, that's easy, man. We can easily make that happen, I think." So I offered him a publishing deal the following week. And he told me a week later, he said, "Man, I'm really, excited to do this. I applied for Harvard pre-med school a few months ago, and I got accepted." So he's like, "So I've really got skin in the game here if I'm going to stay in the music business." He had went on a medical missions trip to Haiti with some people that he knew, and just earlier that year. And he's like, "Man, I just got so much value out of helping other people, especially like physically and helping them. I'm changing lives here. I'm actually doing something that matters." And he said, so as soon as he got back, he's like, "Man, I was just so excited, man. I just applied." And Matt's a very intelligent guy. He's incredible athlete. He played 4 years of college basketball at Drury University. Just a natural athlete. He's tall. He's 6'7".
Oh my gosh.
But
Golly.
yeah, tall guy. So we, so over the course of the next, again, 5 or 6 months with Matt, it was just, man, we're just writing songs, trying to figure out what the path is, because with Matt, the path is very different and always has been. With Jimmie, this is a very commercial thing. It's Jimmie's Super Bowl. That's the ultimate thing, is to play the Super Bowl and be that big of a commercial act. And again, he wasn't out touring, he wasn't playing. So it's like, hey, we got to involve the tools that we need and create the opportunities that we need to get to that path of very highly commercial success. And with Matt, it was very different, because Matt was out touring. He was out playing shows and had been for the last several years with his band, touring, making a living doing that. And he's got this authentic songwriter thing he does. And in our business, you can make a living doing that without having commercial success. You can figure out a path to making, going out and playing clubs and building off of that for, the next couple of years. And at some point, the labels will, see the value that you've created in the business, and they'll come to you. But with Jimmie, we didn't have any of that. It's like, we got to find a partner that believes in this and is willing to go all in and help us build that. And with Matt, we already had that going. It just needed a little bit of a push. So we thought. And so we go in and we cut 5 songs. Prayed for You was one of them that he and I wrote with Allison Veltz. And we shopped it to every label in town, and everybody passed. They're like, man, we just don't get it. We don't hear a hit record. And he needs more development. So I told Matt, I said, well, look, let's just put the record out on our own, man. We can upload it to TuneCore and show it to the world. We don't have to have a record label. And so as we were in the process of waiting on it to come out, Steve, my partner on the company, he called me and he said, hey man, we were just getting ready to shoot Jimmie's video for Best Shot. And Steve called and said, hey man, my wife was watching this show called The Chrisleys Knows Best. And he said, and these people got a huge following and they actually live in Nashville. He said, y'all should think about maybe putting Savannah in a music video or something. It might be helpful. And so I just called Matt and I said, hey man, I was like, what if we asked Savannah Chrisley to be in the video? She's got like 2 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
How much better promotion we can get without having radio or a label to get it off the ground. He's like, sure, who is that? So he had never seen the show. And so he kind of did a little bit of research and we decided then, man, we're going to go shoot a video and do this. So we went and shot the video. Savannah was in it. And the day it came out, I was in Florida. Everybody had passed on Matt. Every label didn't get it. They weren't into it. I was in Florida with my family, and the video came out, I think it was June 9th, 2018.
Early June is a good time for y'all.
It is. It's a good month for sure. But we put the video out, and we had lined up like with People Magazine to just do an exclusive with the video. And we had Savannah, since she was in it, we had the leverage to do that. So we gave People Magazine the video for the first 24 hours of the release. So the Chrisleys could post it on their page, or at least Savannah, we thought Savannah would. But other than that, I mean, it couldn't live on YouTube on a public link. It couldn't be anywhere else. So we were kind of rolling the dice, hoping the plan worked. And it did. Todd Chrisley posted it. Savannah posted it. And People Magazine posted it. And I think it was north of 100,000 views before lunch.
Jeez.
That morning. I mean, it just took off like crazy.
Yeah.
And especially in 2018, like that was way more than it is now. I feel like, 100,000 it's a good first week, but for the half a day in 2018, that was a big deal. And
that's huge.
So about 3:00 that afternoon, I get a call. My phone rings and I answered, and I was like, hello. And he said, hey, is this Ashton? I said, yeah. He said, hey, this is Barry Wise. And I was like, great, man. Who is Barry? Who are you? I have no idea. And he elaborated a little bit. And he goes on to tell me, he said, hey, man, I started, Jive Records back in the 90s. I've been in the business since the late 80s. I signed Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. I mean, he went on and told his whole history in the music business. And he's like, man, I'm in New York. I've always been in the hip hop space, but man, I want to sign this Matt guy. He's like, I'm watching this video. It's a huge hit. He's like, he said, man, I discovered Bob Carlisle, Butterfly Kisses, back in the early 90s.
That's right.
He said, man, I ended up signing that guy, and we had a huge success on that song. And he's like, this is Butterfly Kisses. I think it's as big as that. And so I said, look, man, I'm on vacation. I'll be back Monday. Let's get on the phone. And I got back Monday. Tuesday, we were in New York, Matt and I, and Barry offered him a deal at Sony there in New York.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, on the spot. So within the next week, we got all that squared away and just kind of figured it out. And then, of course, Sony Nashville got, heavily involved. They changed their mind. They actually did all of a sudden believe in Matt. And, the songs, going crazy on Spotify and on all the DSPs and streaming platforms. And, 36 weeks later, we had celebrated a 2-week number one with Matt. And,
so cool.
It's been an awesome journey to be able to build that. And, for me, I always, say this, the most valuable thing that I can offer to Jimmie and Matt is the experience that I had as an artist, and the ditches I ran myself in, and how to keep those guys out of that and give them that advice. And as far as I know, I'm the only manager in town that can actually give them that advice. That actually was an artist that's worn every hat in the business, and it's cool to be able to do that, because like the success, I'm sure, had I as an artist myself, if I would have had a ton of success, that would have been fun. But when I was at the Today Show with Jimmie, I had to, fight just to get the contacts and the email addresses and stuff early on, just to get in contact with these people to pitch Jimmie to the Today Show. And when we got there, and Jimmie's song was, I think he was barely top 20 the first time he did the Today Show. And he was just getting ready to go out and perform. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I was like, man, this is like being able to help somebody do this and have their dream come true is way better than if it had even been my own. It truly is. And to be able to help these people go, reach their goals and achieve their dreams and secure a career in something, because I know how bad it is to want it. I did it one time, and to help them and to be a part of helping them do that is, to me, better than had I been able to do it for myself. So,
man,
what an incredible journey.
I know. And we can hear the heart that you have for them. I mean, it's pouring out of you. So it's so special. And I think what's really cool is that we have a heart for other people as well, and helping them cultivate their gifts and their talents. We have started this ministry because we believe that God has established good works for us to do in advance, well before we were even born. He set out good works for us to do, but he also gave us these talents and these gifts, and it's our responsibility to cultivate them and to work on them and to seek opportunities in order to go best do these good works that we're, doing. And so we would love to hear from you. I mean, I've heard so many, just from your story, I've heard so many different talents and gifts that you've had, but I would love to hear from you what you think your God-given talents and gifts are, and how you've used them, in your career, helping other people and things like that.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, honestly, to put a finger on it. I can tell you where I've been very blessed is through, like, God has surrounded me with people at work, opportunities to either, employ or, partner with other people, and surrounded me with amazing people that are very intelligent, that have a good heart. Also, Steve, who's my partner on this. I mean, look, he gave me a shot and believed in me when nobody else in this town was willing to. I was coming out of a record deal. I was, damaged goods. It's like once you've had a record deal and didn't have success, or even in the publishing world, coming out of a publishing deal not having success, man, usually 9 times out of 10, that's the end of the road, for a lot of people in the music business, unless they're just, too stubborn to go home and they're willing to tough it out for years. And it's, and Steve, he gave me that, and he believed in me and gave me the confidence in myself, because with Jimmie, it was like, I ended up managing Jimmie, and I remember thinking, man, I'm not a manager, I'm a songwriter, man. What is this? What are these people thinking, wanting me to manage this guy? Like, what is Jimmie thinking, wanting me to manage him? but even, and Jimmie and Steve and even my wife, just have always encouraged me and gave me the confidence, because without that, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it. And I think I probably, I don't know that it's a talent, but I feel like a talent's something you're naturally born with. But I think one thing that God has equipped me with, again, is experience. All the time I thought, I was, very jaded coming out of my record deal, not having success there. I mean, when you spend your whole, the past, let's see, 10 years from 2003 to 2013, I'd spent, playing every smoky bar I could find to let me play a song, writing probably over the course of that time, 700 songs, having the opportunities to, be on the road and play. I did it. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do. I worked harder. I'm not going to say harder than anyone, but I worked as hard as anyone ever in the business. I mean, from 2007 to 2015, I commuted from Jackson here at least 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes more. But I was spending 4 to 5 hours a day in a car a lot of times to come up here and write songs and be a part of the community. And so coming out of that, I was so jaded and so frustrated. And I remember as I was coming out of that, I was getting phone calls from artists saying, hey, man, heard this song, so excited about it. I'm going to cut it. It's going to be on my record. And then that would fall through. You get, it's peaks and valleys, except my peaks were so many maybes and so many so closes. And at the time I was thinking, man, this sucks. I hate the music business. I was so jaded. Yeah. And then it had its trials even after starting, a company, starting Watto. It had its challenges early on, but looking back now, I feel like all of that was God just preparing me to be able to do a good job managing these 2 artists that needed it at the time. And I can't tell you how glad I am that I'm not a country music artist.
Right?
I've got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids, and I love being with them and hanging out with them as much as I possibly can. And I feel like my kids need me, to be here. And look, nothing wrong with the people that do it, but it just takes a lot of being on the road, and there's way more sacrifice than at this point in my life I would ever be willing to give. So, and I see these guys go through it and what they're doing and how it affects them and their family. And I'm just, it's just one of those, just looking back, it's like, God really did have a plan. Like, regardless of how frustrated and how much I thought it was supposed to work out for me, God knew it was this was such a bigger and better plan for me in my life.
Awesome. And it did work out for you, just in a totally different way than
in a completely different way.
Yeah. And I think I just want to also just name for you, I hear encouragement, like you giving encouragement to others and like seeing in others what other people haven't seen, which I also think is discernment too. Like when everyone is saying no to Matt and you just were like, well, let's make a video. Let's do it ourselves. Just like the courage and the discernment to make those decisions, what's best for you and what's best for your client. That's super God-given. Not everybody has that. And so that's really cool.
Well, and I wanted to add, just from a personal note, I've seen you serve at church. So beyond exhortation, beyond discernment, I know that I really feel like service is probably one of your spiritual gifts as well.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Well, and it's really funny how the world defines success and how we just have to somehow not listen to that, because you just said you wrote 700 songs. On any planet, that's success.
On any planet.
Right? You know what I mean?
That's true.
And you have a lovely wife and great kids. there's success in that, and that you're able to persevere. You roll with the punches, that kind of thing, where you're just being open to God's next best thing.
Sure.
And then believing in people, even when they show up to award shows in fuzzy pink suits.
Right.
I mean, that was crazy.
Sure.
And we did see him on the Macy's Day Parade.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That was so cool. I was like, hey, turn back.
Yes.
Whatever, everybody be quiet. So, I mean, I feel like, in so many ways, you're very successheal. Even persevering with records and all of that. I mean, that's so much hard work.
Sure.
But we hear in our voice, number one record deal, and then it's just all it's
There's
all
so
noise.
much more.
Yeah.
There's so much
But I'm glad for both your guys though that they're having some of that success.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Because
world
that's God's
defines
plan for those guys, right?
Yeah.
And
Amen.
And look, and they both make such a difference. I mean, what Jimmie and Matt both do behind the scenes is, in terms of blessing other people, is incredible.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, what projects do you have coming up? Anything you can share with us?
We've got a guy named George Burge. He's super exciting guy. We've known him for a long time. He was in a duo called Waterloo Revival for years, and he's kind of branched away from that to do his own solo project. And a guy named Chris Bandy also, that are both just incredibly talented guys. And I think 22 will be a really big year for both of them. So
Yeah, awesome.
Well, that's great. Well, where can folks connect
Follow
with
you, connect
Do you
with
have,
you?
you guys have a website or anything?
Yeah. Instagram, website, any of it. Pretty easy. Just wide open music. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, we before we wrap up, we are really intentional about pouring into younger generations. As a filmmaker, if someone reaches out, we try to connect them with other filmmakers. And so I want to ask you, for those who might be listening that have dreams of being in the music industry, whether it's from the management side or whether it's an artist, what advice would you, if you were going to give them any piece of advice, what would you give to them?
I think it would be, don't be afraid to be wrong or fail. Just do it. Just, do what you want to do it in an authentic way. I think for, aspiring artists, it's easy to be inspired by, Luke Brown or Kenny Chesney or whoever it is in whatever genre, but you have to be your own version of. We already got those guys. We need this version. And that's probably the simple, the most common mistake I see in so many artists that come to town. They're such a fan and they're so talented, but they're a carbon copy of what we already have. But I think it's just, look, listen to God, pray about every decision. I mean, look, we make so many decisions a day at our company, whether it's for a songwriter or for an artist or for a meeting or whatever. We make a lot of decisions that affect so many other people. And look, in the music industry, there's a lot of eyes and there's a lot of people hoping you're going to fail and hoping you're going to be wrong. And a lot of people are watching. And for us, I always I try to pray about all the decisions I have to make. And if I make those based on what I think God's telling me to do, that's a good feeling either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it doesn't work out, hey man, it's because that's the way I felt God was leading me.
Yep.
Or if it works out, hey, it's because that's the way God was leading me to do it. And it's a good feeling to be able to have that. And so I think just like what you said earlier, just because you hit a bump in the road, don't mean it's the end of the road. It's just a bump. You just got to keep going, and you're going to look back and realize that, hey, man, God had the best plan for me. It might not be what you wanted at the time, but in the long run, it's a much better place.
He always works it out for his glory and our joy.
Yeah.
And I love that. Yes and amen. My gosh, thank you so much for joining us today.
This is late. Yeah.
Don't even apologize. It's totally fine. This was awesome. This was so much fun, and it was so cool to hear your story. So thank you so much.
We really love hearing people's journeys. This was very inspiring.
Yes. Well, take care and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Hey, y'all too. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye. For more information on Project Brickworks, visit us online at projectbrickworks.org. Subscribe to our newsletter or text BRICK to 55498 to get the latest news and updates. We love you all. Be blessed, and we'll see you next time.